Hello, beautiful people. It's about 4:20 in the morning, and this is the second take of this. The first take that I did was a bit angry because this is a subject that very much is a bit upsetting to me. So, have you ever asked yourself the question, I wonder how much you're worth, or I'm worth? I want you to listen to how much I think I am worth. Well, recently I've done some videos that expose the truth about vectorism, the CIA and their closed communications, and mind control, and CIA mind caps. Now, if you don't know what a CIA mind cap is, the CIA can spend upwards to millions of dollars programming a specific asset or agent, and specifically a mind cap is the programming, because if the agent gets captured and say the CIA agent gets captured by Russians, and the Russians know about mind control, and the Russians try to undo their mind control, well, the mind cap is set to, how can I say, possibly kill the agent if the mind cap is tampered with or broken, or it will set off the agent to just go on a killing spree. There's many different kinds of mind caps, but this is what the CIA really don't like people talking about, because this is what they do to their mind-controlled assassins from childhood. Me, currently, I've learned that I am one of those people. The things that they've had me do, I will get flashes of memory or things that I don't even understand, and then all of a sudden an electric current will go through my head and I will forget everything. But now I'm able to remember that there was something there, and the process of the electric current going through my mind, just wiping everything out. I remember that process. I used to not even remember that process. So just by me revealing this process of what they do to wipe the memory, these CIA assholes that are listening, they know that I know that they know that I know. So that's the whole purpose of this video, and to actually educate people about mind control and about self-worth. So another thing that I want you to understand is I'm also doing my best to protect another CIA agent by the name of Laurel Aston. It's very difficult because of what they did to her. We both have a CIA stalker in common, and this man goes by the name of Stephen Binion. Now, I will tell you Laurel's first experiences with him, then I'll tell you mine. And this is pretty typical and standard of the CIA doing things like this. Well, she was a mind-controlled assassin, the top asset things that the CIA had her do, she would get paid millions of dollars. And they would auction her off through auctions, comic book auctions. Steve Borak runs that whole operation for the CIA, or did before we exposed him. And the comic book operation is basically, you say I have $1 million for like Superman #5, and they rent you the comic book, and with the comic book you get the assassin. It's all a front and a cover. I mean, who would hear of anybody paying $1 million for a fucking comic book that you just sit and it just sits there and you look at, and it's for you and your friends to go, hey, I got this? It doesn't make sense. But so many stupid comic book people in the comic book world believe in that bullshit because they built it up like this, and they have morons that that could never afford $1 million, but believe that, oh, if I had $1 million I'd get Superman #2, just so I could like put it in a plastic cover and show all my friends this is what I have. It's complete bullshit, people. So it's a front for auctioning off assassins. Now, Laurel Aston, she goes through several of her videos that I did with her talking about this experiences and what they did to her. Stephen Binion was one of the men that did this, and they put him on her to basically breed her and to rape her and to get rape babies out of her so they could get, demonic assassins with her power and skill, and also strip away her money with these rape babies and Stephen Binion. Now, this is more CIA tactics of what they practice to keep their agents in line, the ones that don't do what they want them to do. I still haven't really figured out my situation because I do understand why they did what they did to my family. It has a lot to do with my bloodline and me being a Blackfoot descendant. Now, the Blackfoots were a tribe that were an extension of the Olmecs here in America. The Olmecs were the first world travelers. They were here in America and France and Easter Island. Those are their statues in Easter Island. Before anyone was. So that's proof. They can sit there and then lie and talk about all this, but the fact of the matter is, Egyptology, the whole process of Egyptology was created by white scientists who didn't want to give the black man any credit, so they rewrote Egyptology for them. So predating Egyptology, there's Mayan history, and they tried to rewrite that, but the fact of the matter is Mayans, the word Mayans means illusion. They don't know what happened to these people. Now, the Olmec statues and what we know of them predate Mayans. So what I'm trying to explain to you is the furthest the Nazis have actually gone is rewriting Egyptology. They can't really touch the Mayans or the Olmec's history because it's pretty much written in stone. So the Blackfoots are my descendants. The Blackfoots were a warring tribe that were at war with the Cherokees and many of the other Indian tribes that came to this land because they were here first. They were on America's soil before the Indians migrated from, the continent of India, because the reason why they're even called Indians is because they had the same features of the Indian people that the Europeans had encountered, and so thus they called them Indians, which the fact of the matter is That's more than likely where they migrated from, because they have dark, straight hair and darker skin like Indians. My people, Blackfoots, have dark brown skin and curly brown and black hair. We are the original sovereign first man, and this is proven time and time again, and there's all these scientists that come up and try to disprove this, but they're Nazi eugenists that just don't want to give the Afro men any credit. So I want you to understand about my tribe, and I want you to understand why the Central Intelligence Agency values me so much. The Blackfoot Indians were known for ingesting large amounts of mushrooms before they would go into battle. And then their wives would take their child, wrap the child in blankets so only the nose was basically seen, but it couldn't be hurt because everything was wrapped up just so the child could breathe. So they would wrap it up pretty much in like a ball. And the women would have these catapults. And literally when the men were on mushrooms, you would see like these balls flying over to our enemies when they would go into battle. And the enemies wouldn't know what to make of these balls, because they would hear these kids crying inside the balls. And so the men would be in such an utter rage that they would just go and completely wipe out the entire tribe. They were unstoppable. This is my ancestors, and this is what we were known for, and we never lost a battle. We were one of the most feared tribes and out of all of history, in Indian history, and they know this. No one ever wanted to battle or mess with a Blackfoot. These are my ancestors. So, when I started to read and study more about this and look more into it, I began to have problems. They don't want me knowing these things. They don't want me knowing my history. They don't want me knowing my culture, because then I would start to put it together like I'm doing right now. So I want you to understand that the bloodlines of these people are very much valued as killers to the CIA. So they came after me as a child and instated programming in many different ways. I'm really not going to go into it. But I will tell you that Project Montauk was one of them. I can tell you that off-world travel was another part of it. I can also share with you how me and Laura Aston have Stephen Binion stalking us, because he was put on her and me. He was put on her to breed her, to get rape babies out of her, because he's another CIA Nazi descendant assassin. So they wanted his bloodline mixed with her bloodline to get like demonic little killers that they could control. So I will explain a process of what led me to be pretty much attacked by Mr. Binion. I'll start at the beginning. It has to do with 9/11 and the Black Reparations lawsuit. If most of you don't know, I will explain the Black Reparations lawsuit. The Black Reparations lawsuit, actually, it does benefit black people, but first of all, it benefits white people. That's what the white people didn't really understand about the Black Reparations lawsuit, and it wasn't really talked about to black people because it would have upset them. The fact of the matter is, The first slaves in America were actually white. And some of my ancestors were Europeans, because it was the Europeans that pretty much built up the slave trade here in the United States. But the part of history that they don't talk about is the first Europeans that came over off the boat to America. They were European bloodlines, some of them of royal bloodlines, that had been thrown in jail or put in positions of poverty because the new Germanic bloodlines in the UK had taken over, like the Windsors and Elizabeth. They're not English, they're German descended. And they would go through great lengths trying to hide this fact. So my ancestors came over to the United States, or some of my ancestors came over to the United States on apprenticeships. Now, an apprenticeship is basically you're in jail, and they say, hey, if you sign this piece of paper, you'll get out of jail. You just work for us. That's an apprenticeship. You're basically a slave. So they came over on apprenticeships, and it was a hard life because they had to deal with the Indians, the Blackfoot, my ancestors, and all the other people. So they had their work cut out for them, not to mention, trying to build up the black slave trade in America. It wasn't the rich Europeans that did this. So somewhere along the line, these first white slaves started mixing with the Olmecs, and basically you have me. So I started to understand all this and figure out, exactly what the Black Reparations lawsuit was. And I'm the number one recipient of the Black Reparations lawsuit because of my bloodline is from European descendants, and I'm also Olmec, first man sovereign. So this makes me more royal than any European known to man, and that's a fact. So rather than the Black Reparations lawsuit actually coming out and being filed, which it should have been filed on September 12th, was the day that the environmentalists were supposed to file the impeachment order on Bush, which that didn't happen because of 9/11. September 15th was the day the Black Reparations lawsuit was supposed to be filed, and it was given that date by the Senate, who was obviously in on 9/11. So that didn't happen. What did happen is I became hunted. And what I mean by hunted is I hunted by the CIA and the government because I knew. Because I was approached by 4 lawyers working with Johnny Cochran that told me basically who I was, what I was, and what I was entitled to, and they said they're not sure about how much money I have because these rich Europeans hoard so much money. It's pretty much impossible to figure out an exact number. They would have to be audited. An audit is the last thing these Nazi European people want. They are terrified of an audit. Do you know what an audit is? An audit is someone going inside all of your little, safes. Well, they have huge safes, and all your tons of gold, and all your bank accounts, and all your property, and seeing how much you're actually worth. Exactly. This has never been done to them. There's been estimations and guesstimations done, but there's never been an audit to see how much money exactly these people have. The Black Reparations lawsuit would have said legally you have to do this because you have to divide up your property and give a certain percentage to me. But in order to know what that percentage is, you have to be audited. That was the Black Reparations lawsuit. that Mr. Johnny Cochran started, and he's dead because of it. So after I found this out, I wrote the Romanian consulate, asked them for help. They said they couldn't do anything for me until I got to the country. This was roughly about 12 to 13 years ago. I ended up leaving my house after my stepbrother came into my home, fired off his gun, and with his sister, Dana Jackson, literally started yelling crazy stuff through the walls at me, and how, they were gonna do away with me. And so I packed my bags. I already had my bags packed, and I just went out the window, and I hadn't been back home since. And this was roughly about 12, 13 years ago. So I went to the streets, lived on the streets, became a ghost. No phone, no talking to anybody, literally sleeping on the streets. In Houston for about maybe a month, and then California for a little over a year. And I'm not going to get into that, but basically the cops found me in Mendocino and they beat the crap out of me. I woke up in a cell basically with a plastic vest on after they beat me unconscious, after running my ID and then picking me up off the street. So after this incident happened, I managed to save some money and get on a plane to Romania, and it was very difficult. Romania didn't help me. I was basically a refugee in a third world country, just trying to make it as an entertainer, which I'm a good entertainer, and I was able to maintain myself for about 7 to 8 years. So during that 7 to 8 years, I had a girlfriend. I became too visible for him in Romania. I was doing shows for fashion TV, did a show with Beyonce, did a show with Duffy, started doing my own underground dance parties with other people in Romania, and continuing to do what I've always done, and that was a problem. I was also working at the Radisson Blu, which is also owned by Freemasons and run by the cartel. And it is the nicest hotel in Bucharest. That was a problem. So my girlfriend comes up missing. No one really would do anything. I go to the American consulate. They just pretty much snubbed their noses up at me. It took me about 2 years to find out what happened to her. And I went to war with the cartel, because she's half Gypsy and half Romanian. Now, I don't give a fuck about Gypsies for what they do to their women and how they treat their women. It's absolutely atrocious. And for these Gypsy witches, are casting spells on me, I don't give a fuck about you either. I know what you're doing. And the fact of the matter is, you will be dealt with. So, this is what happened in Romania. And basically, I lost my ability to work because Rothschilds came down, got me fired from my job at the Radisson after giving my Freemason boss a handshake, the Freemason handshake in front of the DJ table, so I could see. After that, I couldn't find a job in Romania. I ended up spending a winter living in the snow. It was the hardest winter I've ever lived in my whole entire life. I actually expected to die. But by the grace of God, I didn't. So I ended up getting picked up off the streets by a dirty cop that was paid, probably more than likely, to do it. I didn't have my visa. I didn't have a place to stay, so they threw me in a refugee jail. So I told the cops who I was. I gave them, well, actually they weren't cops. They were customs officers. I told them who I was. I told them what I do. I told them what I've been through, and I gave them my YouTube channel, which is this channel that you're watching this from right now. If you go back to my first videos, you will see that I'm telling the truth. My first videos were from me living in Romania, living in the snow from a shitty cell phone, exposing the cartel, talking about the cartel. And it's a bit hard for me to listen to because I was so far gone. But doing these videos was the only thing that kept me alive and kept me going, because they were for her, to bring her some justice. So after the customs officers saw that I was telling the truth, they were blown away. They couldn't believe it. And actually, a few of them recognized me from TV, which I was doing a lot of things on TV in Romania. And they couldn't believe, how could I go from doing things on TV to living in the snow? And I told them, this is why. And they couldn't believe it. So everybody was telling me, oh, you're going back to America, they're going to ship you back to America, blah, 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 blah. And the fact of the matter is, the EU law stipulates that you have to go back to your country of origin if you get caught without a visa, which the Romanian customs officers, thank you, bless you. Please continue to protect your daughters, sisters, mothers, and stop the fucking cartel and put a bullet in all of those wicked motherfuckers, because they broke the law for me. They told me the story of the Romanian bandits. I don't know what the word is in Romanian, but there's a word for bandits in Romanian. There's a story about these guys, and they called me this because they said there's never been anything in Romania like me since them. There were 3 guys. One was homeless, had nothing. One was an orphan, and one had his family killed by the mafia. And so what they started doing is they started killing everybody that was guilty. They started killing drug dealers, they started killing dirty cops, they started killing everybody. And so what happened was, they were smart about it. They killed a few strategic, dirty people, and then the whole outfit, they just started warring amongst each other. Cops, mafia, because they're all dirty. And it was absolutely beautiful because nobody knew who was killing who. So basically, this is what happened in Romania from what I did from my videos and exposing the cartel and exposing their businesses and all kinds of other stuff. So then they let me purchase a ticket to Paris. Some friends bought that ticket for me, thank you. So here I am in Paris, pretty much living in squats after Romania. And the first thing I do is go file for asylum. Now I want you to know that I flew on an airplane to France. They took my passport. The pilot took my passport. French intelligence agents came onto the plane, escorted me off the plane, took my passport from the pilot, escorted me to the back of the airport, and sat me down in an office, and they said, "What is this about?" So So I gave them my Romanian papers. I told them they can call the Romanian's customs office. And they did. And the Romanian customs office said he's the best. And the look on the French officer's face was, I can't put it into words. And then he asked me who I was. I said I'm an entertainer, DJ, Michael Jackson's cousin. And he was like, whoa. So then they didn't stamp my passport. They took me around to the side and let me go into France without stamping my passport. I still have that passport today that proves that, French didn't stamp my passport. I have the exit, but I don't have the entrance. So, to make a long story short, I filed for asylum. And I wanted to pursue my straw man bond because that's what this is all about, my birth certificate and my blood right. If you don't know about the straw man bond, let me explain it to you. The straw man bond is your birth certificate. They started it with the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation means, basically, to emancipate means to transfer ownership of property to another owner or establishment. So when they emancipated these so-called slaves, they just transferred ownership to the Federal Reserve and from the hands of the slave masters. The black public didn't know this. They thought they were free. So in this process, they said, okay, Mr. Slave Master, how much is your slave worth for a lifetime of free labor? And so they estimated, about $1 million. So they gave each slave $1 million worth. So this is your birth certificate. So I want you to know that this is what I did. And to HSBC Bank in France, that's right across the street from Rothschild Manor, I want you to know that I know, and I want other people to know, and I want other people to call that bank, and I want other people to just, let them know that we know. And I want my fucking money. So I went into the stock brokerage part of HSBCA Bank. Not the bank, but the stock broker part. I talked to a broker. I showed him my birth certificate. He had never seen anything like it. So he said, because I told him it was a bond, and to make a long story short, I showed him where it says under my mother's name, it should say mother, correct? And he said, yeah, it should. And I said, it does. I said, it doesn't. And I said, see, up under my mother's name it says informant. This one thing legally makes this a binding bond and a contract. Legally. So his mouth dropped because he knew I was right. And then I pointed out the lower red number is my stock trading number. That they trade this number on the stock market secretly and probably from this bank because this is the Rothschild and Windsor's bank. So again, he was shocked. But he realized that I may be onto something. So he took my phone number, he took a copy of my birth certificate, and I had his business card. It was stolen from me. And he said he'd call me in a few days. So to make a long story short, 2 days later, my cell phone was stolen by Stephen Binion. He bumped me in a subway. And I specifically remember this because I remember being bumped, and then like a minute later I went for my cell phone and it wasn't there, and then I said, what could I, and then I remembered the guy bumping me, and it was him. I hadn't seen that guy until Laurel Aston said, this is him, this is a picture of him. We looked him up online. You're looking at him right now. So she said he gets his face changed a lot, but the picture that I saw of him was the same guy. So, a week later, guess what happens to HSBCA Bank? All the head execs, top execs are fired because they got found out by French police that they were utilizing these accounts and accessing these accounts on a regular basis, using them for God knows what. My account, my money that they've been, that they've had access to since the day I was born. So HSBCA, all their head execs shut down. It was a big ordeal. But you know what? I didn't get any money. They were exposed, but nobody did anything for me. What did happen was I was homeless still until a week before my asylum hearing, because it takes 6 months to a year to get in front of the French Asylum Council. So you have to rough it. So a week before my time to go in front of the council, I got attacked. They broke my arm, dislocated my jaw, head trauma, back trauma, and they sent some young kid at me. I mean, this kid was really young. He was a good fighter. I couldn't hit him, though, because it was like, if I had really fought in this fight, I really would have hurt this kid. And that was the whole point of it. Because either I'm gonna get hurt by this kid, or I'm gonna hurt him and then go to jail. So it was a no-win situation, and so basically I let the kid break my arm. So to make a long story short, I ended up being in the hospital during the time when I was supposed to be in front of the French council to seek asylum, and that never happened. What did happen was I ended up homeless on the French streets, sleeping in the French subway, line 8, in the Bastille that winter. Now, what I will tell you is this. The Bastille has a secret base under it. It is accessible from line 8. It is a French intelligence underground base that the Nazis built because during the time of the Nazis' preoccupation of France, the Nazis built a bomb shelter in the Bastille, which today is a French intelligence underground base, which did house a Stargate. So I can tell you all of these things and tell you honestly, and don't get pissed off at me, French. You haven't given me my money yet, and you still, I don't know, I mean, you haven't grown enough balls to get rid of the Rothschilds, the biggest sores of that country. So this is what happened. So some friends of mine purchased a ticket for me to go back to America, which was really stupid, because they started putting me back under heavy mind control. And I kept up my websites. I was just doing X-formers at first. And then someone approached me because he was also a targeted individual, and he was being stalked by the CIA because of the name of his website. It's called Dismantle the Central Intelligence Agency. He was about to shut it down, and then he met me and he said, "Oh man, would you be interested in taking over my webpage?" And at first I was like, and then he said, "Okay, I'll make you an administrator, see how you do." And he ended up being thrown in jail because gang stalking. So I took over the page, told everybody what had happened to him. He had his sister fully turn over the page to me, and I still run the page now, and he's back out. But he doesn't want to have anything to do with the page. Those days of fighting the CIA and Freemasons and the satanic cult for him are over. So anyway, I still maintain the page and my X-Formers page. I don't really do much on X-Formers anymore. I kind of just leave X-Formers for the more important stories, so they'll be up there. Dismantle the Central Intelligence Agency is more just current news and a continuous flux of news. So X-Formers is more of an archive page that makes it easy for people to go back to find other important stories that may get lost on Dismantle. So that's how I pretty much set up these two sites. Now I'm in Cancun. After meeting a woman by the name of Laurel Aston on X-Formers, the way I met her was her knowledge of the occult and what they were doing was actually pretty profound on her comments. And then I noticed on her page what was going on, and I started talking to her on the phone, and the things she was telling me about these people she was living with and the CIA and what they were doing to her was just heartbreaking. And so I ended up going to New York to help her and to protect her. And I ended up basically taking out her 2 CIA roommates and the Asian CIA people that were living underneath her, the occultists, because she's pretty discreet. She doesn't really know how to deal with them like I do. I don't take any shit from them. I'm an MC. I'll get in their face. I'll push their buttons. I'll really make them fuck up. And I love doing it. So we ended up basically, I rented a U-Haul and took her and her animals. We wanted to come to Mexico, but we couldn't cross the border in a U-Haul, so we ended up going to South Padre. Now, South Padre Island is a CIA hive now. I mean, I didn't know it was a CIA hive. I remember that, it's just a nice beach for me being a kid, and we'd always used to go there because I have family from Harlingen. That's where my Nubian Moor side of my family is from. So Laurel ends up getting a job at a health and wellness center run by Dr. Susan DeVay. Now, again, let me remind you that this area is a heavy CIA occultist area. They put me in jail for doing videos exposing the CIA occultist symbolism they would have in the windows of their stores. Literally. I have videos of it. I'm not kidding people. So they put me in jail, tried to put me away. I spent my last birthday and Christmas and New Year's locked up. I still have a court case or a good case for that because it was thrown out. But I haven't pursued it because I just don't have the money to do it. So Dr. Susan DeVay is a CIA handler. Dr. Susan DeVay was also assigned to bring a rape baby, introduce a supposed rape baby back into Laurel Aston's life, and to put Laurel Aston back under mind control at her workplace of establishment, which pretty much just catered to other occultists in the area. Laurel Aston goes into this more than I care to in this video and the last video I did with her. Now we're in Cancun. We were pretty much pushed into a home. What I mean by pushed into was we rented this house because it was one of the only houses we could find, because every time I would find a place to rent, something would go wrong. So we were pretty much pushed into this place because the owner said okay, which the owner of this place is more than likely C.I.A. because the people across the street from me, my next door neighbor, they're all CIA. Now, let me tell you how I know that they're CIA. Because I like to go through a process that I call trial and error, and putting the scientific hypothesis process to work. And it works beautifully all the time. It never fails. First process is reveal. Be honest. Speak about who you are, because you know they're listening. Part 2, strip them down. Get in their face, start taking pictures of their cars, putting their cars on the websites, exposing the websites, and then acting like, oh, you don't know I have my website, but I know you do, but let's play like you don't. So this is just, they're just so stupid. So Alberto, my next door neighbor, he's an enforcer. Now, an enforcer works for the CIA, and they do basically witchcraft and casting spells on you and trying to reinstate mind control with witchcraft and evil demonic spells, because basically I want you to understand that all CIA mind control is based on demonism and mind control. That's the CIA. So all of their assets have to be very well versed in witchcraft, because the whole mind control, the whole occult, the whole CIA Nazi occult, the whole Nazism is based on runes and occultism and witchcraft. So once you understand this and understand exactly what their enforcers do and how they go about doing things, they don't change anything. They try to incorporate this witchcraft with science. So anyway, Alberto had a Porsche and had a Mustang when we first moved in. Now he has no cars in his driveway. I guess he sold them. They haven't been there for like going on maybe a week and a half since I did the other expose where I put his cars and the neighbors across the street and the other people across the street from him, all their cars up, because they're all in on this. You have Alberto and his wife, who are the enforcers, and his wife's a handler. A handler is the one that basically instates the mind control through hand signals. That's why they're called handlers. And then the person across the street from me, who drives the red Mazda, who purchased a Honda, and the day he purchased the Honda, it was a used Honda, he took it back because I took a picture of it and put it up, and now it's gone. And so now he's back to his red Mazda. But he's a gatekeeper. Now, a gatekeeper is another warlock. The gatekeeper is basically the warlock that is the gatekeeper for the CIA and the gatekeeper for the new codes that the CIA sends down through demonic entities, or, I mean, he's a high-level warlock. The gatekeeper has to be. You can't be a gatekeeper and not be a high-level warlock. So that's his job. And I want you to understand the gatekeeper is the person that keeps the gates to the new codes and new installations of codes and whatever. And what I mean by codes is the mind caps. A mind cap is a CIA, basically a digital demonic Nephilim binaural code that keeps your mind cap in place and keeps it basically hooked into your brain. Now, when I say hooked, I literally mean hooked, because these people utilize demonic entities and they have these things called flesh hooks. You might have seen them in the movie Hellraiser, but these flesh hooks are really small because you're dealing with like nanotechnology and nano demons, and so they just pretty much just hook themselves into your brain and shut down the part of the brain that they don't want you accessing. Like, say I'm a ninja assassin and they don't want me accessing the ninja assassin part of my brain, but I'm starting to access the ninja assassin part of my brain, and they're getting scared, so they have to write new codes to keep the ninja assassin part of my brain locked down. So the gatekeeper writes new codes and casts new spells and then gives it to the enforcer, which is Alberto, and then Alberto will get the new spells and then cast them on me because he's my next door neighbor. So this is the process that these assholes go through. Now there's a new witch. I think her name was Laura something, that lives next door to the gatekeeper. Now, she is the overtaker, and her and her husband are the overseers of the whole operation, because she's the one that is a high-level witch that comes down, and she's part of the Vril. She's a Vril witch, so they're considered the most powerful witches in the whole, CIA, NSA, Nazi shababble. So she is like the digital encoding and the witchcraft and everything. She knows about everything. So that's why they brought this bitch in with her husband. And her husband is a weekend warrior. He has this nice little motorcycle out in front, or actually parked in their front yard. And what I want you to know about Mexico is, Hell's Angels are really prevalent here. You always hear them revving by the house on their loud-ass motorcycles. Well, Hell's Angels are pedophiles, rapists, and drug dealers. But her husband is more of the upscale, I don't really go there, but I still like to ride my bike. Well, he's called the Weekend Warriors. The Weekend Warriors are basically what Jay Leno and all the guys that like to ride their bikes on the weekends and get together, they're still part of Hell's Angels. They're just the more upscale Hell's Angels CIA guys that don't get really seen with the ruffians and get their hands dirty. But they like to ride the bikes too and rape kids and, deal drugs. But they're not really that open about it like Hell's Angels, because they live in nicer societies and upscale societies. So that's the people living across the street from me, next door to the gatekeeper across the street from Alberto. Now, I want you to know that I saw these people when they moved in. They did the whole "howdy neighbor, how are you?" or blah 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 blah. And I watched Alberto give them the Freemason handshake. And, and I was like, oh God, here comes some more. So, these people are getting paid obscene amounts of money to stay at home, to basically do nothing, because I'm not working. Laurel Aston had a lot of jewelry, I'm going to be honest, and we're pretty much just like living off that and trying to do nothing and get our memories back. And this is a long process because you have to stay isolated as much as you can and try to fight off these demons' attacks that are living across the street from us and next door to us, because they're always doing this to us. So they're probably more than likely getting paid with my strawman bond money from the Rothschilds and the Windsors, who want to avoid an audit and who want to avoid everyone knowing how much they are stealing from me and how much I'm actually worth and how much they owe me a percentage of their funds legally. So to Mexico and to the Mexican government, thank you for not doing shit and being just as lazy as everybody else in the whole fucking game. I would expect this from Europeans, but not Mexico. You would expect that if somebody with a case and was this rich, literally, and could literally change the face of your fucking country in a few months, once I got that money, you would think that these dumb assholes would do something, but no. They would just rather, suck the dick of the cartel and send in their bullshit cops to arrest these drug dealers after they've sold like trillions of dollars of drugs, go in and confiscate their big homes and take all the money and then give it back to the politicians so the politicians can redistribute it back to the Rothschilds. It's a nice little process. That's another reason why they don't want you to audit them, because of all that black drug money that they literally control. I mean, if you don't believe me, Iran-Contra scandal, Clinton, Bush, they were at the top of it. MENA cartel, they were exposed. And then now look at 9/11. How long have we been in Iraq forcing the people of the Middle East to grow poppies, and poppies are for heroin? 11 years. So where's that money? Rothschilds, Bushes, American government. Oh, it doesn't exist, but we're not doing it. But there are plenty of pictures of it, and you can go to the Middle East and you can even see soldiers, guarding over poppy fields, flower fields. Why are you doing that? So where's that money? But America's in an economic crisis, right? And no, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but apparently, every news person, even fucking RT, they just can't repeat what I just said, but they just keep repeating bullshit war stories. Oh, this person's doing this. This person's doing this. If I had a news channel, I would keep repeating the same shit. Where the fuck's the money? I would show pictures of soldiers guarding poppy fields and keep running exposés on the Iran-Contra scandal to prove that these motherfuckers are just lying and hoarding obscene amounts of money, while innocent children and women get bombs dropped on them because of wars that they start, because they don't want the Rothschilds Nazi bank, while innocent children starve, while so many people just wither away. I mean, even now, there goes another one. and another and another and another. And why? Because some stupid asshole that has the right to bear a gun and to put a bullet in these motherfuckers won't do it. They just keep wasting time. Day after day after day after day, minute after minute after minute after minute, while another innocent child dies. This is the world we live in. And this is the sheer ignorance that I want you to see and understand, that when the rapture comes for you, and God says, what did you do? And oh, I had to do this. Oh, I had to do this. And then God says, but you couldn't see this? You couldn't do this? What was keeping you from doing this? Oh, you had to go shopping. What was keeping you from speaking about this? Oh, you had an image to maintain with your bullshit friends. When the rapture comes for all of you, it is going to be like this. There's not going to be any excuses. You can make as many excuses as you think, you can make, but there's not going to be any excuses. It's going to be pure, uncut, direct, precise, to the point. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Because it doesn't take an intelligent person to see what they're doing. Because yes, I'm a very intelligent person, but I'm putting it in such a way that the normal dumbass Joe can get it. And it's like this. So, if you're not in a position to help me, if you're not in a position to help anybody but yourself, then help yourself. Help yourself by exposing the truth. Even if you wake up 1, 2, 3 people a day, that is still helping yourself and helping the cause. So anyway, love and light, and thank you for your time. Wake up, people. Their time is coming to an end. Peace.